I'd like to call the November 6, 2023 Bristol, Virginia School Board meeting to order. Let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone out tonight. Item 1B, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jones?
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Guffey,
Yes.
Mr. Atlas.
Yes. All right, item 2A, reports, discussions. Superintendent's report. Dr. Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have updates on several projects, and we'll be calling your attention to some decision points that are on the horizon for us. To start off with the construction at the intermediate school, I joked with our staff last week that for only about 9 more months will we be starting meetings off with the update on the construction. So it's at some point we will move beyond talking about how construction is going.
We're close.
We have started to see paint on the walls, and I know that there was a concern from Mr. Ellswick from Skanska that the pastel colors on the walls might be too light, but Mr. Ritchie and Dr. Denabriga visited last week and really believe that as you can see some of the accent colors on the wall there, really believe that the darker tiles will help tie everything together and that we will have a very aesthetically pleasing building once it is opened up. We have ordered the kiln for the art classroom and are awaiting its delivery. There's been some concern about an electrical line that was cut during the paving projects, but Mr. Buckles has assured me that that has all been resolved now, and we will have enough lighting there for voting tomorrow. The Van Pelt campus is going to be a very busy place tomorrow. We have scheduled professional development there, and I'll be talking about that a little later on. And but we will also have will be a voting precinct tomorrow. We recently added some playground equipment at the existing Van Pelt school, and I know there's been plenty of discussion about, thank you. There's been plenty of discussion about the playground that will be at the intermediate school next year, but I wanted to share with you some of these pictures of the new playground equipment at the existing Van Pelt, which will be the Virginia primary playground next year. If we had live shots of this, you would almost definitely see students using it right now because it is state-of-the-art and it is very accessible, and we're very happy with that. So again, as we are excited and we've had a lot of discussion about what will be at the intermediate school, I'm happy to say that this is at Van Pelt for use right now, and the students at the primary school next year will get to benefit from that. We have a few maintenance projects that have been going on. Virginia High School has recently seen renovations in a couple different places in the school. The maintenance department has recently reopened the boys and girls restrooms on the second and first floors, and they are working on renovations in the band room where there had been some water damage that had ruined the floor and had affected some of the walls there. So they are working through those renovations, and once those are wrapped up, they have a project for a classroom over at the middle school that they will get to next that is also a water infiltration problem. And wanted to let you know that the wrestling rooms are still being worked on a little bit at the high school, and the elevator project that we talked about a couple months ago at the middle school, as I explained in an email to you, we have had a little bit of a setback there with some materials that were damaged in shipping. However, we had to make a decision about whether to work with those materials when the good materials showed up and possibly have that elevator out of service while students were in the building, or if we could defer that project a little bit and wait until the Christmas break and not have a disruption in service. So what we ended up deciding to do was to push that back to Christmas break to make sure that the elevator stays in service. And the certificates will still be good, and we have a guarantee from the code inspector that everything is still able to be run properly. We had a Connect 4 event out at Sugar Hollow in early October. Students and staff from our 4 elementary schools took time out of their normal routines to engage in some fun activities. The special area teachers from the elementary schools, this being the physical ed teachers, music, media, and art teachers, took a lead in organizing this event. And I want to acknowledge Mrs. Zachlyn Leland in particular for her effort in this matter. While the vibe after the event was overwhelmingly positive, we all know that it takes a great deal of courage and confidence and hard work to pull off an event like this that is designed to commingle people who naturally don't commingle. So bravo to Coach Leland and all of the staff who made this a wonderful event. And I think there's already plans in the works for finding ways to replicate some of the fun and some of the good ideas that we had there in some upcoming events in future months. This past Friday, 4th and 5th grade students visited Virginia High School for a career fair. Ms. Adriana Cox coordinated with 10 vendors to provide our students with a chance to get some early career exploration opportunities. Ms. Cox is also warming up a relationship with the local 4-H chapter for some more career exploration opportunities closer to Thanksgiving time. As we continue to talk about our plans for bringing all of our elementary teachers together at the new intermediate school next year, we have some exciting news that we'll get to in just a second. We continue to make a number of organizational steps this time of the year, and some of these are behind the scenes. Some of them are progress that we know about through meetings that we have with each other on this floor, but they're not really public information yet. For instance, we're making a big division-wide effort to become more uniform in how we appraise our teacher instruction in the classroom and how we deliver growth-producing feedback to our teachers. Those conversations are intended to lay some groundwork for the upcoming year and for years to come. We're also doing some behind-the-scenes professional development architectural work, which is to say that we're planning for some training that is still months away, and we know that there will be foundational pieces of that need to be picked up sooner rather than later. But in terms of the steps that are much more visible in our preparation for next year, we've recently shared with teachers their grade level teaching assignments for next year. To be very honest, all the attention that we paid towards celebrating the physical building that will be the new intermediate school, we realize that there is still a lot of anxiety, a lot of sleeplessness perhaps for our teachers who want to know what their life is going to look like next year. We know that there are certain unknowns that are inevitable, but we also want to share as much information as possible with our teachers and support staff members. To that end, Mr. Ritchie and others, I believe all the principals had some input on this, have been able to share recently with our classroom teachers who will be teaching which grades. With few exceptions, Mr. Ritchie and his team were able to accommodate teacher requests, and in those instances where we weren't able to accommodate the request, we got very close. So it may be that the teacher is one grade level away from what they had requested, but as far as I know, we don't have anybody that's really at the opposite end of the pool than what they requested. Some calculations and some budgetary number crunching still have to be completed to determine the placement of some of the special area teachers and school counselors. We remain hopeful that retirement and attrition will prevent us from having to use a reduction in force policy. In other words, the outlook is still positive that we'll be able to retain all the staff who meet licensure requirements and have positive evaluations at the end of the year. And it is possible that we'll have these and other remaining staffing questions answered publicly in December. As we turn to tomorrow's events, the Election Day professional development that I mentioned briefly earlier, keeping with the theme of elementary staffing and our continual effort to keep them happy and keep them engaged and prepare them for the tasks that lie ahead. Our elementary teachers will be participating in both a tour of the intermediate school and some professional development that is centered on the launch of the Virginia Literacy Act, or the VLA. First, for the tour, teachers will have small group tours of the new facility during the Election Day in-service day tomorrow. Additionally, they will be working with reading coaches to get more familiar with the science of reading, Scarborough's reading rope, and the letters training, all of which will be extremely important in the lives of early readers for the foreseeable future. The way we'll be teaching reading, which will be informed by scientific study of the brain that has never been understood to this degree, will be featured in upcoming board meetings. I would really like, as this year progresses, to get some of our reading coaches in and to show the board and to show the public what kind of changes are on the horizon for how we teach reading. There's also a lot of work to be done with this kind of training, though, and to give our teachers the level of expertise that they'll need. So tomorrow, in addition to the tour, in addition to the Virginia Literacy Act training that we do, we'll also be talking about lesson plans, and some of those discussions will center on what are the critical components of each reading lesson that we need to be seeing daily. So our elementary teachers will be fully in it tomorrow with the Virginia Literacy Act and seeing the new school. For a crisis plan update, and I know this slide's been waiting on me to get to it up there for a minute. I will be visiting Virginia Middle School and Virginia High School tomorrow to provide a little bit more information about our crisis plan. Just a couple days before our last board meeting, we had a significant disruption from a swatting call at Virginia High School. 2 days after our board meeting, I visited the staff at the high school to make some quick but specific adjustments to the crisis plan, specifically to our terminology and logistics surrounding a lockdown response. Seemingly right after that, Virginia High School experienced another swatting call. The second time around, although not perfect, our response was much more coordinated and things went much more smoothly. Tomorrow, I'll be getting into more detail with the middle and high school staffs and hope to set the table for some upcoming drills. We will communicate to families beforehand, but I want to make sure that I say this evening, that BVPS will not be conducting any kind of drills that are intended to be fully authentic and risk causing any kind of trauma when we do those drills. So although we will have unannounced drills, we'll not be doing it to simulate a real-life event, and all drills will be prefaced by saying this is a drill, or we're going to be practicing such and such procedure. It is a balancing act, but we want to make sure that we are not doing anything to traumatize students. At the same time, we need students and staff and parents to understand that we need everybody to be taking these drills seriously. So to that end, tomorrow I will be at the high school and the middle school discussing with staff, and then we will shortly after that, hopefully still in November, begin conducting another round of these drills. With communications, BVPS will be contracting with a company called Aptigee on a new website and a mobile app that will help us be a little bit more nimble and flexible during a crisis event. But crisis communication is a very small percentage of the overall communication that we do. So my hope is that as we develop our website and our mobile app with Aptigee, that we will be able to take all of the various modes of communication we have and start to braid those very thoughtfully, and hopefully be rolling out that new app and the new website probably at the beginning of the summer. But I intend to have some early adopters so that we can start going through an experimental phase with that sometime in the spring. I want to provide an update on the All-In Virginia plan. This is more on the budget / Virginia Department of Ed side of things. Our all-in tutoring plan has been approved by the Department of Education. As the board and the public may recall or be aware of, the Department of Education provided school divisions across the Commonwealth a little bit over $400 million in this budget to be spent as one-time money over the course of 3 years. Bristol has secured our share of that, which is $1.2 million, and our plan is now available on the Virginia Department of Ed website. The plan basically explains how we will spend our funds to address learning loss, preparation for the implementation of the Virginia Literacy Act, and chronic absenteeism. And without getting too far into the weeds, BVPS has directed more than the recommended share of that allotment towards chronic absenteeism, and we think that is well justified, as that is one of our school board's goals for the year. And last in this update is I want to bring your attention to the fact that November is Bring Your Legislator to School Month, and Delegate Israel O'Quinn will be visiting Stonewall Jackson Elementary School on November 10th at 11 o'clock. I plan to join him on this visit, and I invite members of the board to welcome him if your schedule allows. I've been keeping track of the number of times that I've seen Delegate O'Quinn this year, and 4 out of 5 times it's been at a school. So I can safely say that that's one of his priorities, and we're very fortunate to have representation from Delegate O'Quinn. And that concludes my updates for this month.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I was fortunate enough to be at Van Pelt coincidentally for something else. At the same time, they were doing the first recess outside at the new playground, and it was really, really exciting. Mr. Rader invited me to come out and play, and I did not because I didn't want to get hurt, but I just took some pictures. But it was really great to see the kids. They were excited. Our kids that use wheelchairs or mobility devices were, just right up there on the playground equipment with the kids who don't use those devices. And, some of the activities like twirling or pushing that the teachers usually have to do. They didn't have to bend over as far or push as hard. So I think it's going to be great for everybody, but really, really cool to see the kids enjoying that.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Scott. I would just say I had heard about the playground Friday week ago at a fall festival, and I was glad that we've got it going and the students are using it, and it's for everyone, and that's great to have that capability. Let's see, item 2B, Student Board Representative Report. Who's got it?
All right. This year, the 4 of us decided that we wanted to be more involved in the community. So Wilson and I have been to a couple of city council meetings. We've heard the council discuss ordinances and several issues just pertaining to the city. And Councilman Holmes actually expressed to us that he wants student input on the development of their new comprehensive plan update. And I went to the comprehensive plan update community meeting last week, and they just had several surveys that collected basic data about what citizens want to see from the city. I think we're really looking forward to working with them and just making sure that students have a voice in Bristol's future.
This month, we had a spotlight on the middle school, and we went and we looked at some issues that students have been talking about, and a big thing has been lockers. Students have been creating presentations, and there's been a petition with about 100 signatures at the time that we went to the middle school. But students, they've been collecting like critical arguments, and they've been using critical thinking to persuade their administration for some changes that they'd like to see.
We also got to visit the middle school and talk to the faculty and staff. The faculty and staff confirmed that students have been engaging and learning as normal. Students have claimed that they have no concerns regarding the classrooms. Student activities such as the Scholastic Book Fair have been ongoing at the middle school.
All right. We were also invited to the middle school on Monday, October 30th, day before Halloween, to help judge their homecoming door contest. We saw a lot of creative doors, and each of them used fun artwork and decorations to warn against the use of drugs. So I feel like that was a really creative way to just get the message out there to students. It was a tough competition since there were so many creative designs, but I think the winner was probably the Taylor Swift door with the with the friendship bracelets.
It was awesome.
During October, we also had our annual homecoming dance. We had a live DJ and catering from State Line Bar and Grill. With tables and heaters, students were allowed to socialize freely throughout the dance. Overall, our school's homecoming dance was a hit, with students running to the dance floor to show off their moves. Thank you.
Last month, we also had a homecoming carnival where different clubs and activities and classes throughout the school set up, and there were different games and things that students could do. I know that a really popular thing was smashing a car. Everyone loved that. But is it generally good community building for our school. Students enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you all. So I got a question about the lockers. How long have we not used lockers? I didn't realize we weren't using lockers. Does anyone know that?
Call on Mr. Harper in the back.
Okay, all right. So is there concern moving forward about that? I mean, with what's the administration's concern? Do we know that?
I think typically the concerns are the more places you give students the opportunity to keep contraband, the more places they're going to keep contraband.
Okay.
However, a member of our communications committee brought forth the idea and said that she believes that it would be, it is right now wasted space to have lockers that we don't use, and wanted to explore the arguments. And so I have encouraged her to talk to students and to engage with administration, and I'm awaiting her to give me a report on that, and told her that it was not a that kind of proposition where no means no, absolutely no, but that we would work with it, and if there are compelling reasons to use the lockers, we would consider that.
So just a thought off the cuff, could maybe lockers be earned?
It'd be an interesting take on it, but yeah, I think that is a possibility.
Not a given for it's not a given for everyone, that set a criteria to earn your locker. Just a thought.
I'll chime in on the lockers too. As a parent and as a public health professional, I do have concerns about the amount of things that kids are carrying in their backpacks. I know we don't have textbooks, but they're carrying a lot. And there's actually some policy position statements by the AAP about that children shouldn't be carrying more than a certain percentage of their body weight in their backpacks because it can cause long-term spinal damage. And I think a lot of our kids are carrying more than that percentage of the weight in their backpack. And I think, the band instructor is great about letting the kids drop their things off, but if they're doing sports or other extracurricular activities, they have a lot of things they're carrying with them, and I would love for them to be able to put that in their lockers. I don't want to give them an opportunity for contraband either, but I do have concerns about those things.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you all for your report. That was really good. Thank you. All right, item 2C, a discussion on updated cell phone policy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the survey results and would like to summarize those for you, if I may, to take them in three parts. The first part being the parent survey. We had 379 parents participate in the survey, and of the responding parents, half of them indicated that their students are either enrolled in the high school or they have students enrolled in multiple schools. So I think the responding population definitely skewed towards the older students. 91% of the parents believe that their students follow the cell phone policy, and only 46% of them who responded think that think that their children should have unlimited access to their phones.
I'm sorry, what was that percentage?
46% said that their students should have unlimited access. So more than half agree that we need to have some restriction.
So that's during class.
It didn't qualify it as during class, just in total, the idea that there needs to be some restrictions placed on it. But the question wasn't written to indicate what time of day they were referring to.
It'd be interesting to think that 47% or 46% would want cell phone access during classroom period.
Right.
Wonder if we could.
More of what I have here might add some context to that.
Yeah.
Slightly more than half of the responding parents believe that the teacher should have the ability to decide when students are allowed to use their phones. And the responding parents indicated that the policy should be more explicit in terms of what kind of consequences result from cell phone violations. But they did not generally support the idea that a phone should be confiscated if there is a cell phone violation. The parents were evenly split on the notion of whether access at lunchtime would be sufficient. It was, I forget exactly which way, but really close to 50-50 on having it at lunch covers our needs. In the open-ended questions, the parents generally fell into some pretty well-defined groups. A lot of parents who responded strongly asserted that they want their children to have access to their phones in cases of emergency and when transportation plans change. With just as much support was the idea that parents said that phones should not be permitted during instructional times. So I think if you were going to really try to summarize where this group of 379 parents falls, it's they want students to have access to the phone, not necessarily unrestricted usage of the phone. When I looked at the student data, 215 students responded to the survey, and if you were going to guess that they felt phones were very important, then you are right. Overwhelmingly, the student results said, my phone is very, very, very important to me. And as a parent of a teenager, I kind of rolled my eyes at this number. 96% of the students responding said they're not distracted by their cell phones. Now, as a side note, the average time it took a responding parent to complete the survey was just under 5 minutes. The average time for a teacher to complete the survey was around 7 minutes. The average time for a student to complete the survey was 73 minutes and 48 seconds. So I think there was some distraction going on as they were. Yeah. Generally speaking, the responding students want greater access to their phones and say that they should be given the responsibility to choose appropriate times to use them. In the open-ended questions, the students did provide a diverse range of answers. Some do see cell phone usage during class time as being disrespectful, disruptive, and counterintuitive. A lot of the responding students want to see a time defined for them to use their phones, or a time set aside for permissible usage. Almost all students indicated in some way or another that they feel they should have access to their phones in case of emergencies when their phone is otherwise restricted. And then the teacher survey, we had 63 staff members who responded. 57% of the responders think that the policy works. 54% think that the policy needs to be revised. And 55% of the responders say the policy is not clear, with just under half of the respondents saying that the consequences are not applied consistently. So when we think about what all that means, about half of our teachers who responded think that we have a policy that works. So I think that's a pretty good indication that from the teacher perspective, we're not exactly where we need to be. In some of the other questions, the teachers who responded say that there is a relatively small percentage of students who consistently violate the policy. There were, however, about 18 survey participants who said that the cell phone violations account for more than half of the disruptions in their class. So just to kind of emphasize that last point, I think there are a lot of teachers who experience cell phone problems, and a lot who would say, well, it's just a few students who are a thorn in the side, but there are some for whom this is the biggest problem that they deal with on a daily basis. And with that, I will turn the discussion over to you.
I saw a piece on the internet where Orlando, Florida, had a pretty well-defined cell phone policy that the parents and teachers and a good portion of the students agreed to, but there would be no usage or cell phone access during class. And then there would be free time that the students could use cell phones. So it was flexible in that regard, but we're in the business of educating students, and when a cell phone is 50% of the disruption in a classroom, that's a big problem. And I don't know if we have to have buy-in to get cell phones usage out of the classroom. They have access to it, but have to be turned off or whatever.
Well, I'm in agreement. I mean, 50% is a lot. Uh, If there's one disruption in the classroom, that's enough. So, you know, my biggest support would be behind the teachers for this, this issue, or if there was a policy change, I think I would feel like trying to follow the teachers' indications personally.
Their job's tough enough.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the current policy that says teachers can decide for their own classroom? Is it stated that way?
Yes, the policy is permissible for teachers to say, this is an appropriate time to use it, or you may use this to aid in instruction. But there are also some of the comments from students and from teachers who say that the idea that cell phone usage and permissible usage is tied to a student's current grade, believe that that is an unfair notion, and that it, I thought one of the interesting comments was that a teacher says that when you say that you can use your phone after your work is done, that incentivizes students to rush through their work. And so I think that tying cell phone usage to student performance is probably a direction we need to go away from.
Do we provide Wi-Fi for the students? That'd be one way to control it.
Well, we have, and I may be speaking out of turn on this. I know we give them devices that hit the Wi-Fi and give them all the access they need to complete their schoolwork. But as far as regulating which cell phones hit our Wi-Fi, I'm not exactly sure what our capability is to control that.
They can still use a cell phone without Wi-Fi.
Sure, but you can't get online as well.
Correct. Well, yeah, I mean,
And when they're using our Wi-Fi, we can put filters in place to prevent them from accessing certain apps and so forth.
So when I'm thinking about the cell phone policy, I'm thinking about our motto of preparing all students to thrive, and that our charge as a school system is to prepare our students to be successful members of the community, successful citizens, either if they're going on to higher education or if they're going on to the workplace. And when I think about it in a workplace, most of our workplaces, we cannot have cell phones out and have unfettered access to our phones. When I was working in a local health department office, we were having to discipline staff all the time at the front desk who were using their phones, and there were some staff that lost their jobs over it. If you are a nurse, you cannot have your phone out with you. If you are a surgeon, you cannot have your phone out with you all the time. If you are in a college class and want to be doing well and paying attention, you cannot have your phone out all the time. There are some jobs that you can have more access to your phone, but you may need a higher degree or to have an apprenticeship or something like that to be able to get it. So I think we're doing our students a disservice if we act like unfettered cell phone use is something that is going to help them be successful in the real world, because that is not going to translate into their adulthood in a way that I think they probably want it to. I think there's also an issue of respect for their fellow teachers, their teachers and their fellow students. It's very annoying, I would imagine, to have to be disrupting class to ask students to put their phones away. And then I guess my other thought is about, I like the idea that we have sort of a baseline policy, and then we say to our teachers, if it works within your classroom or your plans, you can give access in a way that seems appropriate to you. I would like to have clearly laid out consequences so that the teachers and the administration and the students and the parents all know what those are, and that they're going to be followed through in a consistent manner in the schools, because that's where I think we are probably running into problems based on what I think you said in this survey, what I think I wrote down.
Yes, ma'am, and I think that with, to give my opinion on the matter, that when we have inconsistency, whether it's teacher beside me isn't doing what I do, or if it's depending on which administrator you end up with, when there's inconsistency, A lot of times losing my train of thought or how to articulate this, but I think with that inconsistency, we end up breeding more inconsistency. We have teachers who don't trust the policy. We have students who game the system a little bit and are going to take advantage of one teacher over another. And I think that if we're able to spell that out a little bit more in the policy, that would give us a greater likelihood that we will be consistent.
Well, I've had a few teachers contact me, and I've also talked to a few other teachers. And I don't know if it was just the ones that were in my circle there, but they all felt like cell phones was a disruption in their classroom. Whether the student hears their phone vibrate that's in their backpack on the floor, or they've got one of the earbuds in their ear, or that kind of thing. And I just think it needs to be something very cut and dry. So there's no gray area. Everyone understands the consequences. Everyone understands the rule. I mean, whether it's your cell phone goes into a box at the front of the classroom, in every classroom, or it turns off and stays off. When you're at football practice or basketball practice or band practice or drama, you don't have your cell phone. You don't have it on. Those kids survive. Hour and a half, 2 hours of practice. So I kind of equate that also to classroom time. And it doesn't seem to be a problem in the extracurricular activities.
There is a high school in Richmond this year that's doing a pilot around this issue. I don't remember all the details because I read the article like a week ago, but they bought these like pocket things that students put their phones in during the day, and every student's issued one, and it has some sort of mechanism that it locks by the teacher's control or something like that. So the kids can keep their phones on their person or in their backpack, but they don't have access to it. And I was reading it and thought, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do this. And it's like 70 grand that they are spending for one high school for these things because they're very expensive. Yeah, that was my face too, Dr. DeNaprica. So I don't know. I guess we could wait and see if it's successful for them and see if we want to put money into replicating it. But I mean, there are other school systems wrestling with this, but some of the solutions that are not punishment-based may be very expensive. Doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue them, but.
So as far as our policy now, if I'm remembering correctly, there seems to be some gray area in interpretation from what the teachers feel they have the right to do and maybe how the administration is enforcing that policy. So I think as we look at rewriting the policy, we need to make it, as Mr. Fletcher said, clear cut. No gray areas. This is what our policy is. I think our teachers, as already been said, their job's hard enough. That they have to control their classroom, and cell phones are a distraction everywhere. I mean, absolutely everywhere. Not, workplace, everywhere they're a distraction. When someone has them out, and you're trying to have a conversation or you're trying to work, they're distractions. The vibration is a distraction, noises are a distraction. And if a teacher does not want that distraction in their classroom, they should have the right. Our policy should give them the right to say, you need to check this at the door. And when class is over, you can pick it up. If emergency situations, it's right there. You can grab a hold of it in case of emergency. But otherwise, and if there's something going on in a family where they need to get in touch with the student, if our policy should let them know if your student is in a class that they're not able to get to their phone, call the office. That's how it used to be done. If you needed to get in touch with your student, call the office.
Exactly.
And they would take care of it. They would get them immediately. And that, I think we need to roll that in there somewhere, if.
Mr. Collins told me, he said, most of the vibration, phone calls are coming from parents.
Right.
So they need to be aware that they don't call during class time.
And I didn't pull these results out for comment, but just from what I recollect, going back through there, a lot of parents say that they do have daily contact with their student. Most of it is through text message. A lot of it, I believe, is, did you make it to school okay? Things like that. Most parents who say that when asked how often they call their student at school, that seemed to be few and far between. That doesn't happen on a regular basis. But there was a lack of confidence from parents saying that they didn't trust or that they didn't have confidence in the school's ability to get a time-sensitive message to their student if they called. So I think that no matter what we do, however we fashion this, one, we need to be sure that the consistency is such that the power struggle is not between the student and the teacher, because I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, that when a teacher is trying to implement the policy in his or her classroom, that puts the student and the teacher at odds. So we need a policy that is going to have that. I wish that there wasn't a power struggle, but when there is that struggle, it's between administrators and students. But also, we need to have parents and students understand that a text message may be able to get through, but it may not be received until a certain period in the day. And that if there is a need for urgent communication, that needs to be a phone call to the office.
Well, a well-defined and workable policy that doesn't have any gray areas. As far as I'm concerned, that's tough love. We're there to take care of the students.
I guess I would be curious too about what the consequences specifically are, if those are going to be explicitly stated in the policy, or if those are going to be like a working policy within each school. But I would think it would need to be, I think we would need to have that be understood. I think maybe I already said this, understood by all the relevant parties to know what those are in advance and to make sure that, I guess I'm curious about what it looks like. That is a consequence that isn't just like go to the office and get lectured and then you go back to class and everybody sees that nothing really happened and you take your phone to the next class and you do the same thing. What it would look like.
Well, I think that other places I've worked, the policy that has been in place there is that on a first offense, there's a warning and that is brought to the attention of the parent that there's been a violation and a warning and it's documented. And that on a second offense, that the student is given an opportunity to hand over the phone and have the parent come pick it up. And they can pick it up that same day so that, that the student isn't without it all night, or if there's a need for communication to happen after school, that can still happen. But that if the student refuses, we no longer are dealing with a cell phone issue, but we're dealing with an issue of insubordination, and the student can be suspended for that.
Do you three feel like that would be a policy that would be an effective deterrent? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Two strikes, you're out.
We think that it would work, but also with that, I feel like they would still tell their parents to come to the school and still tell you guys to let their kids have access to their phones for emergencies and stuff. No matter how many offenses there are, their parents aren't going to take it serious.
I'm just thinking if it was me and I had to go to the school to pick up my kid's cell phone because they weren't listening, I'd be really ticked and I'd be having a conversation with my kid about it. And like, you're going to lose your phone in your like after school life, not just at school. I don't want to spend my time driving up to the school to get my kid's phone, but I'm not sure, that is the same way everyone else would feel.
My kids' phones would be gone. I mean, I live life without it, and they can too. I mean, it's a privilege, not a right, to have a cell phone. And I think that needs to be informing a policy that we need to think that way. It's a privilege, not a right, to have that cell phone in school. And, you can't, the consequences have to take away that privilege. I mean, that's just what it has to do. I mean, I kind of agree with the previous place you've been where, you have a warning, parent comes in, and then from that point on, it gets harsh. And I just feel like we make things too easy, try to smooth everything out and make everybody happy. I mean, we got to do what's right for the majority of the students in the classroom, not just a few, not just a few. And, the few are, the few in the numbers are spoiling it for everyone else. So the few are the ones we're going to have to deal with. This policy, if you're a person who abides by the law and obeys rules, this isn't going to affect you. Our policy isn't going to affect you because you're going to do what you're asked to do. Our lower numbers that don't listen to authority and do not respect authority are the ones that we're going to have trouble with. And it's got to be tough. As Mr. Goodpasture said, tough love. And that's how you learn to respect. That's how you learn to get along with authority, is to follow the rules.
Well, we talk about not having any gray area. I think that's exactly it right there. It's got to be 1, 2, and you're out. Everyone understands that. If you have a lot of debate and negotiation back and forth, I think you're just back to the same problem.
And I think in developing a policy as well, that I think an agreement needs to go a signed agreement with a parent or guardian, whoever is over the student, and a signed agreement with the student. Hey, I've read this policy. I know the consequences, and if I obey it, I'm agreeing to what's going to happen. By signing this paper, I've read it. I know it is going to happen to me if I don't obey the rules.
Well, and on the other hand, if you're using your cell phone in class, then you're not doing what you need to be doing.
Right.
So it's just like Mr. Alvis said, if you follow the rules, you don't have anything to worry about. There is no problem. Right. You're responsible enough to carry a device with you and use it responsibly. Just like driving a car, just like anything.
Just to overthink it a little bit, I know that we have a significant portion of our families who have transportation issues. I think the policy would probably need to include some thought about what that looks like if a student whose phone is confiscated and their parents are not able to make it there. Do we take it to them? Student picks it up after school? Whatever it is, just that way it doesn't look like, oh, some kids, the policy is enforced more leniently than others.
And I would say that our student board representatives have been very thoughtful the conversations I've had with them about this. And I think that was one of the things that they picked up on early, was that this could have a different feel for different students, and certainly the family dynamics, and parents who work third shift could be differently affected than parents who work first shift and so forth. So, but I did want to take another moment to thank them for their thoughtfulness in this and some of the great ideas that they generated from the very first.
Well, I'm thinking even if they lose their phones, they would go back to emailing because they've got computers. So they'll still be emailing because they were real good at emailing before, and they could hide that and the game that they're playing, and then, oh, this is what I'm working on when you come by to see. Is there in the system a way for teachers to monitor what goes on the students' laptops?
Software like that is available. But
Yes.
yeah.
In our system, do they use that? I don't know if they use that or not.
I don't know that it's universally used, but I know it's available.
It's called what?
And I think what Ms. Guffey is sort of pointing to is that I think there's an underlying issue here that's not necessarily present in every time a student's using a phone, but that we've talked about a lot, is getting the full buy-in and partnership of all the parents of all of our students. Because we can take the cell phone away, but then there's still email, or there's still websites, and the kids can still not be, doing what they're supposed to be doing in class, or they can sleep or whatever. But I think our, all-in plan around chronic absenteeism and our board goals reflect this, but the underlying illness here that we're seeing symptoms of is that we need to have a lot more of a partnership, engagement, relationship with all the parents in our community, and have everyone seeing the value of fully participating in education in school each day.
Well, I mean, that's a really good discussion. There's a lot of points to put into a policy there. But, I mean, that's something for us to work on over the next
Keep
few
Mr.
months.
Ritchie busy for quite a while.
All right, let's move on to item 3, public comment. I don't have any cards. Does anybody want to speak? All right. No movement. Moving on to item 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jones?
Mr. Fletcher, excuse me, Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Guppy,
Yes.
Mr. Albus.
Yes. All right, item 5 is action items. Item 5A, approval of employee bonus.
Sorry, I was pulling this up. I was ahead of ourselves.
Oh,
Sorry. I was ready to read us into closed session. Sorry.
so do we have a motion?
I move we approve the employee bonus as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any comments, or I think everyone's kind of aware in the system of the bonus that's been given, and I will just say, and this is hard to say, I've been on this board longer than anybody. I can't believe I'm saying that, but
You're old.
I'm old. But I mean, from day one, our employees' pay has been an issue. And, over the last 6 years, we've really made great strides in that. And I'm just glad that, regionally, we're on par or better than anyone in Southwest Virginia. And in Upper East Tennessee, some as well. And I'm glad we're just able to give our teachers a bonus this year. All employees, not just our teachers, all of our employees a bonus. So I thank you all for that.
And I want to add, Mr. Chairman, that the hard work of this board in the previous 2 years to give 15% increases over the biennium, where the state's mandate has been a 10% increase, and now the state has provided an additional percentage, or 2% rather, in hopes to bring that to a 12% increase, and our board has already gone above and beyond that. I think is remarkable and says a lot about the value that we place on our teachers here. And on behalf of the employees, I received several messages on Friday and through the weekend of gratitude, and I'm sure that you guys have received those as well, but just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for that and for keeping employee compensation at the forefront of the planning for the budget in the past couple of years and going forward.
I appreciate your work, and I'm sure Tammy's work in figuring out the ratio and trying to spread this out and make it all satisfying to everyone.
I think much of that is credited to Ms. Jones over there. I've asked her to provide me an array of options, and when she does, she usually slides one a little bit farther forward on the desk. So thank you to Mrs. Jones.
Ms. Jones?
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard,
Abstain?
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Geppy,
Yes.
Mr. Alves.
Yes. All right. Item 5B, approval of school board budget revision number 3. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve school board budget revision number 3.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Jones, you want to explain? Or
Yes, this, the third budget revision, what has happened here is there's been some of the lottery money has been moved around and restructured to help fund the bonuses. We also have insurance payments coming back in for the damage at the VHS band room. And so that was moving some money into purchase services for that. And as we are taking a recommendation this evening for an athletic trainer, we had to find the funding for that within our budget. And so that's been rearranged in there to fund that position.
okay. All right. Any questions?
What is the significance of the blue in the budget and the red?
So the blue means that it is an estimate. We haven't yet received a final number from the state on that grant or that entitlement. So once it turns black, it's a solid number.
Okay. I saw some red numbers, I thought, yeah.
I hope you didn't see
Okay,
red
that's just the
numbers.
city
I hope
appropriation.
you didn't see red numbers.
Huh?
I hope you didn't see red numbers. You may have.
Well, it's on line 1137.
1137.
It's the city's number.
Oh, that is the city appropriation numbers. I'm sorry. The city has to appropriate what we spend every year, and I just put that, the city appropriation numbers as a guideline for us.
But the blues are estimates.
Blues are estimates.
Or
Well,
guesstimates.
everything's an estimate, but blues are really estimates.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Jones?
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpaster,
Yes.
Mrs. Geppy,
Yes.
Mr. Alves.
Yes. All right, item 6 is closed session. Ms. Hubbard?
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following matters. Discussion of personnel is authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, specifically discussion of certain personnel, recommendation for employment, and resignations.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jones?
Mr. Fletcher,
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Goodpasture?
Yes.
Mrs. Guppy?
Yes.
Mr. Alves?
Yes. All right, with that, we'll go into closed session. read us in.
The Bristol, Virginia School Board certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting, and only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were considered.
Second.
In a second. Ms. Jones?
Yes.
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 Yes. Do we have a motion to approve attachment A?
I'll make a motion to approve attachment A.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Ms. Jones?
Yes.
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 Yes. Any new or old business? Everybody have their cars situated for?
No.
Mr. Hubbard, Mr. Goodpasture, I'm sorry, Frank. Mr. Goodpasture will be driving his own vehicle.
Yeah, I'm taking my car.
Yep.
I'm riding with you. So you got it covered?
I've got it covered.
All
No,
right.
Stephanie has it covered. I'm just driving.
You're just,
All right. Well, no other business. We're adjourned.